the moment the pungent stench of decay seeped through the window crack. I jolted upright from the cheap fabric sofa, the sharp metallic sensation stinging my fingertips. Looking down, the stainless steel fruit knife that had been casually tossed on the coffee table was now suspended in midair. Its blade aimed directly at the zombie frantically clawing at the security door nearby. The electronic calendar on the wall clearly showed July 17th, the day the apocalypse fully erupted. In my past life, I missed my chance to escape in this very rental room. Was tricked out of all my supplies by my so-called close friend Lin Weiwei, and ended up as zombie fodder. Before dying, I watched helplessly as she took the food I had saved, snuggled up to the male lead Jiang Chen, and settled into a temporary base, safely weathering the early, most brutal black rain period. From the street outside, roars rose one after another. The sidewalk downstairs was packed with mindless walking corpses, their bloody hands slapping against the glass. The entire building had lost water and electricity. Emergency lights flickering on and off, casting shifting shadows in the hallway. I slowly raised my hand, focusing my mind, and the suspended fruit knife instantly spun at high speed. The metal blade cutting through the air with a piercing whir. It pierced precisely through the gap in the security door, and the zombie clawing outside collapsed on the spot, foul black blood seeping through the door crack into the room. At that moment, I fully confirmed that the ability granted by my rebirth had taken effect. Metal manipulation. My gaze swept over every metal object in the room. Iron window frames, radiators, water pipes, door locks, various kitchen utensils. Alloy hangers all trembled slightly under my mental pull. A steady stream of metallic energy flowed through my body, and at the same time, the basic abilities of this power surfaced in my mind. Free control of all metals, melting and forging weapons, and restructuring metal building structures. A soft knock came from the entrance, accompanied by Lin Weiwei's deliberately gentle voice. Yen, are you home? It's terrifying out here. And I haven't stocked up on any food. You hoarded a whole cabinet of compressed biscuits before. Can you spare half for me? Brother Jiang Chen is downstairs. We plan to team up and evacuate. In my past life, I softened and opened the door, not only emptying all my supplies but also lending her my only self-defense iron wrench. She then turned around and persuaded Jiang Chen to abandon me. This time, I didn't hesitate for a second. Using my psychic power, I jammed the metal lock core inside the door completely, locking and reinforcing all the hinges of the security door. The originally thin iron door panel thickened threefold under metal restructuring, forming a solid metal barrier. Lin Weiwei, realizing the door wouldn't budge, immediately grew impatient and started pounding on it with her fists. Su Yen, what do you mean by this? Aren't we best friends? Now that the world's gone to chaos, you're just going to stand by and do nothing. Brother Jiang Chen said I have to come along to form a team and head to the A City base. If you don't give me supplies, I'll have him leave you behind. I walked to the window, manipulating the metal bars of the guardrail to bend, shaping several long, sharp spikes aimed at Jiang Chen standing downstairs. I could clearly see the two of them at the entrance of the building. Lin Weiwei clinging to Jiang Chen's arm, her eyes full of calculation. I spoke, my voice carrying through the thick door. My supplies are for myself alone. If you want to survive, gather your own. Don't come knocking on my door again. Lin Weiwei, furious, kicked the door panel hard, but the reinforced metal door didn't budge, sending a sharp pain through her foot. Jiang Chen frowned, pulled her away, and whispered a few words of persuasion. The two turned and headed toward the supermarket in the neighborhood, apparently planning to trick other residents living alone. Shifting my focus, I began clearing out all the metal materials in the room. I dismantled and melted down the radiators and water pipes, forging two long alloy tang swords in the living room. The blades were tempered with stainless steel, sharp enough to sever a zombie's neck in one strike. I also crafted dozens of diamond-shaped metal darts and stored them in a canvas pouch sewn into my clothing. From the first-floor hallway came the snarling of gathered zombies. A few mutated corpses slowly crawled up the stairs, their nails scraping against the concrete floor with a piercing sound. I manipulated all the iron railings in the hallway, twisting and intertwining them to seal off the stairwell. Sharp metal spikes jutted outward, ready to impale any zombie that came close. After setting up basic defenses, I inventoried the supplies stored in the room. Water, instant food, and medicine I had stockpiled in my previous life were all intact. I also used my metal ability to modify the windows, installing 3 layers of retractable metal guardrails on the outside with a locking mechanism inside. Even if the later black rain corroded the walls, the windows would remain intact. The sky gradually darkened, and the first scattered drops of black rain fell prematurely, sizzling as they corroded the outdoor concrete ground. I forged a thick alloy plate to seal the window gaps, blocking the corrosive rain. Leaning against the newly crafted alloy blade rack, I quietly awaited the coming changes, fully aware that Lin Weiwei and Jiang Chen would never let things go easily. They would soon return with more survivors to seize the supplies. The black rain drizzled for half an hour. The ordinary zombies inside the residential area, corroded by the rain, moved noticeably slower. I sheathed 2 alloy tang swords at my waist, grabbed some metal darts, and manipulated a slender metal rod to float beside me as I pulled open the reinforced metal door. The iron spikes coiled around the stairwell entrance held back the remaining zombies. With a thought, I retracted the spikes to clear the path and slowly made my way down to the first floor. My target this time was the supermarket at the center of the residential area. In my previous life, it was stocked with supplies but was taken over by Lin Weiwei and Jiang Chen first. They later used it as leverage to recruit team members. Now, I intended to take all the metal shelves, kitchenware, and tools in advance, using them to forge more equipment and upgrade a permanent shelter. Just as I turned the corner at the entrance of the building, I ran into Lin Weiwei, Jiang Chen, and 3 burly adult male survivors, armed with wooden sticks and stones. The 5 of them were blocking the supermarket's rolling shutter door, threatening and coaxing the elderly woman living alone inside to hand over all her rice, flour, and cooking oil. The moment Lin Weiwei saw me, a flash of ecstasy flickered in her eyes. She immediately pushed aside the man beside her and stepped forward, forcing a pitiful and aggrieved expression onto her face. "Ian, you finally came out. I was too harsh just now, don't be mad. The 5 of us only have a bit of bread left. Nowhere near enough to make it to the base. Give us half your supplies, and we'll take you with us. Brother Jiang Chen has a powerful lightning ability, can protect you." Jiang Chen stepped forward in sync, faint purple lightning crackling around him as he deliberately displayed his ability to intimidate. The 3 burly men behind him also advanced half a step, forming an encirclement, making it clear that if I refused to hand over the supplies, they would resort to force. In my past life, I was intimidated by this show of force and obediently handed over my reserves. But in this life, with a slight flick of my fingers, the metal rod floating beside me shot out instantly, striking the wrist of the nearest burly man holding a wooden club. The club snapped with a crack, and the man howled in pain, clutching his wrist as he stumbled back. Lin Weiwei's face instantly darkened, dropping all pretense of gentleness. She snapped harshly, "Su Yen, don't be ungrateful. This is the apocalypse and no one can survive alone. We were kind enough to take you in, and you dare to attack someone kind-hearted." I raised my hand, and the internal metal structure of the iron rolling shutter door at the supermarket entrance, under my control, slowly rolled upward on its own. The shelves inside the store and the iron cash register all trembled slightly. "Just now, you forced the elderly to hand over supplies. Does that count as kind-hearted? If you want supplies, gather them with your own abilities. Don't set your sights on me." Jiang Chen's face darkened as he raised his hand and unleashed several thin bolts of lightning toward me. The lightning was fast, but a thin layer of metal barrier instantly condensed around me. The lightning struck the metal surface and rebounded entirely, with several purple electric arcs returning along their original path, all landing on Jiang Chen's shoulders. He let out a muffled groan, stumbled back 2 steps, his arm instantly numb, and his lightning-based ability briefly stalled. Seeing Jiang Chen at a disadvantage, The 3 burly men immediately brandished stones and wooden clubs and charged at me. With a thought, I summoned dozens of thin metal wires from inside the supermarket, which flew out to entangle their hands and feet. The wires tightened more and more, binding them so tightly they couldn't move, and they fell to the ground struggling. Lin Weiwei, terrified, tried to dodge and hide behind Jiang Chen. I flicked 2 metal darts that grazed past her ear and embedded themselves in the wall beside her. The metallic vibration made her tremble all over with fear. Don't even think about pulling any tricks. Metal is my weapon and my eyes. I'm fully aware of every little move you make. I stepped into the supermarket, dismantled and melted all the iron shelves under my control, stacking them into a massive lump of raw metal that floated in midair. I packed up all the grain, oil, drinking water, and medicine, leaving only a small amount of expired instant food on the cash register. Jiang Chen eased the pain from the backlash of his supernatural ability. His eyes filled with greed as he stared at the massive clump of metal raw materials suspended in midair. He knew full well how precious large quantities of metal were in the apocalypse, essential for forging weapons and building defenses. Immediately softening his tone, he tried to persuade her. Su Yen, let's team up and travel together. Your metal ability combined with my lightning type will double our combat power. We'll split the supplies and metal evenly and head to Besa together. If we run into mutated beasts on the way, we'll be better prepared. Lin Weiwei quickly chimed in, wiping her tears and playing the victim. Yeah, Yen. We grew up together. I wouldn't hurt you. I was just too anxious earlier and said harsh things. If we join forces, we won't have to be scared and alone. I glanced at the 3 burly men on the ground, bound by metal threads, and manipulated the threads to release them. In a cold voice, I said, I don't need teammates. Take the expired food from the cashier's counter and leave. Stop blocking me from gathering supplies. If you try to rob me again, I won't go easy on you. None of them dared to step forward again. They could only watch helplessly as I left the supermarket with the clump of metal raw materials and a large haul of supplies, heading back to the apartment building. As I climbed the stairs, the low growls of mutated dogs echoed from a distance. Sensing with my energy perception, I detected several first-level mutated dogs moving toward the supermarket, without the protection of metal weapons. Lin Weiwei and her group had no way to fend them off and could only scramble to hide inside the supermarket storage room. Slamming the door shut, back in the rental apartment, I sorted the newly collected metal materials, forging metal shields and extended alloy spears while modifying the balcony's metal railing to extend a suspended metal platform for long-range observation of the entire neighborhood. The black rain continued to corrode outdoor structures, but the modified metal framework remained completely unaffected by the rain, far more durable than ordinary walls. From outside the window, I could hear the quarreling voices of several people in the storage room. Lin Weiwei blamed Jiang Chen for everything, accusing him of failing to subdue me and seize the supplies. Jiang Chen retorted irritably, and their conflict erupted for the first time. I leaned against the metal window frame, listening quietly, knowing this was just the beginning of their internal strife. More clashes awaited them. After 24 hours of black rain, the morning sky took on a murky grayish-yellow hue. The ordinary zombies outdoors had undergone their first evolution, moving twice as fast as before. The streets within the neighborhood were covered in corrosive black stains, with ordinary wooden and plastic debris completely dissolved by the rain, leaving only metal items intact. Today's target is an abandoned auto repair shop 2 kilometers outside the neighborhood. It stocks entire vehicle steel plates, steel pipes, auto repair alloy parts, and thick iron plates, an excellent source of large-scale metal materials. This will be enough for me to forge a complete set of individual combat gear and create detachable metal modules for later modifications to build an exclusive shelter. Before leaving, I reinforced the metal security door of the apartment building, securing the forged long spears on both sides of the corridor as trap weapons. I carried 2 tang swords, metal throwing darts, and a small round alloy shield, spreading out my mental power. The positions of all metal objects within a 300-meter radius were clearly mapped in my mind. Along the way, as scattered evolved zombies approached, I manipulated abandoned iron barrels by the roadside to smash into their heads. After they fell, I finished them off with a single slash, digging out the milky white first-level cores and storing them away. Arriving at the gate of the auto repair shop, the thick iron door was covered in rust. Faint voices could be heard from inside, through the gap in the door. I sensed with my metal perception that there were 6 unfamiliar male survivors hiding inside, armed with crowbars and steel pipes, dismantling car steel plates. The leader, a burly man with a fierce face, had a pile of scavenged food beside him. They seemed to be a raiding squad specializing in ambushing lone survivors. Instead of pushing the door open directly, I manipulated the metal lock core inside to jam it shut, then bent several thick steel pipes to block the back door, cutting off all their escape routes. After that, I raised my hand and pushed open the front door, holding the 2 tang swords in my hands as I stepped slowly into the repair workshop. Hearing the noise, all 6 men turned their heads, seeing that I was alone. The burly leader sneered and waved his hand. "A little girl running over here on her own, quite bold. Hand over all your supplies and weapons. And that metal manipulating ability of yours. Be a good girl and do as we say, and we'll let you live. Otherwise, we'll throw you out to feed the evolved zombies." The thin man beside me stepped forward with a steel pipe in hand, his greedy eyes fixed on the tang sword at my waist. "Captain, these 2 blades of hers are top-grade material. 100 times better than our crowbars. And those car steel plates scattered outside, let's take them all. We can forge a batch of weapons." The group fanned out to surround me, raising crowbars and wrenches, ready to rush me all at once. With a thought, I made all the car steel plates and steel pipes in the workshop levitate instantly. Dozens of thick metal tubes horizontally blocked their advance, cutting off their attack routes, while several sharp, thin steel plates spun through the air, hovering above their heads. The burly man's face changed drastically as he swung his crowbar to strike the flying steel plates. But the metal, under my control, dodged nimbly, coiled around his crowbar, and with a sudden burst of force, wrenched the tool from his grasp. Suspending it beside me, the others scrambled to scatter in panic. But the scattered auto repair screws and metal washers on the workshop floor transformed into tiny flying needles, precisely piercing their arms and calves. The pain incapacitated them, and they fell to the ground, wailing, "Plundering your own kind in the apocalypse. Seizing resources, that's a death wish." I raised my hand, reclaiming all the metal materials. The scrapped cars in the workshop were dismantled and melted down, converging into a massive pile of raw metal. "Leave all the supplies you've looted, and I'll let you leave the auto repair shop. If you ever rob lone survivors again, next time I won't be so lenient." The leading burly man was unwilling to accept defeat, but was suppressed by Thesky-filled flying metal needles. He could only command his companions to hand over the backpack, the compressed biscuits, purified water, and first-aid bandages inside were all taken out. I only took half of the basic survival supplies, returned the rest to the 6, and manipulated the steel pipe blocking the door to move aside, clearing the passage. The 6 limped away in disgrace, not daring to look back, fearing I might change my mind and strike them down. After clearing the obstacles in the workshop, I set up a metal forging station on the spot. High-temperature metal energy surged from my palm, melting various alloy raw materials, and I began batch forging military equipment. 2 long alloy combat knives, 3 lightweight composite metal shields, 4 retractable metal halberds, dozens of sharp diamond-shaped metal explosive darts, and a full-body metal protective soft armor. The armor plates were thin and fit the body, not hindering movement, yet capable of resisting zombie claw attacks and mutated beast bites. After forging was complete, the remaining metal raw materials were shaped into 2 categories. One was standardized square metal modules, which could be quickly assembled into walls, doors, and windows. The other was reinforced metal brackets and waterproof metal sheets, specifically used to modify the shelter. shielding against black rain corrosion and zombie assaults. In the backyard of the auto repair shop, a large number of discarded gasoline barrels were piled up. I manipulated all the metal barrels to be collected, and the gasoline was divided into small sealed alloy containers to serve as high-temperature fuel for later forging. I also dismantled the iron fence in the backyard to forge metal ropes and portable metal storage boxes for storing crystals, medicine, and scarce supplies. Approaching noon, the sound of a vehicle engine came from the distant road. The metallic perception identified it as Jiang Chen's off-road vehicle. Lin Weiwei and her group were gathering metal supplies along the road, about to reach the auto repair shop's range. I quickly gathered all the forged products and raw metal materials, manipulated thick iron sheets to seal off all entrances and exits of the repair shop, set up metal spike traps on the outer perimeter, then slipped out through a hidden metal drainage pipe at the back of the workshop and returned to the rental apartment in the residential area. Halfway there, I ran into the 6 looters I had let go earlier. They were hiding behind the ruins by the roadside, planning to ambush Jiang Chen's team and seize their vehicle and supplies. A conflict soon broke out between the two sides, with wooden sticks and lightning bolts clashing in a chaotic melee, leaving them no time to notice that I had already left the repair shop. I stood coldly by the metal railing on a distant rooftop, watching as the two groups wore each other down, saving me a lot of trouble. After returning to the rental apartment, I immediately began planning a shelter renovation scheme, preparing to find an underground space to build a permanent safe house. Scene of this chapter: the underground civil air defense project in the residential area, located 3 floors beneath the building, spacious and multi-layered. It is the permanent shelter I have chosen and the core stronghold for the middle part of the storyline. It carries forward the early-stage metal reserves and forged equipment, kicking off the main plot of large-scale metal modification. New conflicts arise from multiple survivor squads coveting the underground space, with tensions escalating over resource competition, territorial disputes, and ability counterplay. The black rain has persisted for the 3rd day. The walls of surface buildings are heavily corroded and peeling, with ordinary residential buildings at risk of collapse at any moment. The underground civil air defense project shields against rain corrosion, maintaining a sealed, constant temperature. Its only flaws are the thin original iron doors, damaged ventilation ducts, and defenseless entrances perfectly suited for a full-scale renovation using my metal manipulation ability. Carrying all the metal modules, forging tools, and military equipment, I followed the underground passage of the apartment building to the entrance of the civil air defense project. As I pushed open the broken iron door, chaotic chatter came from inside. 3 small survivor squads, totaling 19 people, had already occupied the hall area, dividing rooms and moving scavenged mattresses and food. The 3 leaders were Earth-type, Water-type, and Speed-type ability users. Seeing me enter alone with a large amount of metal supplies, they immediately gathered around and blocked the entrance. The Earth-type ability man raised his hand, causing several earthen walls to rise and block the retreat. Speaking in a domineering tone, "We've taken this underground space first. Outsiders, leave immediately and leave all supplies behind. Otherwise, the earthen walls will seal off the passage and trap you inside to die." The water-type girl raised her hand, forming a water column aimed at me, while the speed-type youth beside her kept pacing back and forth, looking for an opening to strike. The other survivors held broken stones and wooden sticks, forming layers of encirclement. Everyone stared at the complete set of metal military gear and massive metal modules in my backpack. Knowing that these supplies could directly elevate the squad's defense and combat power by a level, I didn't panic. I mentally commanded the metal modules in my backpack to float up, quickly assembling into a Doomsday alloy protective wall in front of me. High-temperature energy surged from my palm, melting a small amount of metal into a liquid metal stream that spread along the ground to the base of the earthen walls. It instantly solidified and hardened, firmly fixing the soil. The Earth-type ability user could no longer control the earthen walls, his ability directly countered by the metal. The water-type girl urged a massive water column to surge toward me, I manipulated several thin alloy plates to spin and form a barrier. The water splashed and rebounded off the metal, drenching the opposing team. The damp environment slowed their movements. The speed-type youth seized the opportunity to launch a flank attack. I flung several metal darts that grazed his calf, the metal spikes cutting into his flesh. The intense pain from his high-speed movement caused him to stumble and fall, neutralizing his ambush capability. All the abandoned steel bars and iron ventilation frames in the hall came under my control. Reassemble into dozens of metal rods that hovered around the 19 survivors. The metal tips aimed at their limbs, ready to pierce and immobilize them at the slightest movement. The 3 leaders, seeing their abilities completely countered by metal, panicked. They stopped their forceful expulsion and softened their stance for negotiation. Let's split the underground space. You handle the defensive modifications. We'll gather food outside, and we'll jointly guard the civil air defense shelter. No need to split. I'll modify and use the entire underground civil air defense on my own. You can stay in the ground floor hall but must not enter the private areas on the 2nd and 3rd floors. All metal modification materials belong to me. We'll gather supplies independently without interference. If anyone trespasses upstairs, the metal defense traps will activate automatically. I raised my hand to dismantle the thick alloy modules and began modifying the core entrance of the civil air defense shelter. The original thin iron door was dismantled and reforged into a 20 cm thick alloy blast door. The door frame was welded with reinforced metal locks, featuring multiple hidden lock mechanisms that could not be breached by external force. The 19 dared not object and retreated to the ground floor hall. I headed straight to the complete 2nd and 3rd floors to begin a large-scale renovation project. All damaged ventilation pipes were replaced with thicker metal pipes, fitted with metal filter baffles to block external black rain toxins and zombie decay gases. The walls of every room were assembled with standardized metal modules, with gaps sealed by molten metal for complete waterproofing and corrosion resistance. Each stairwell was equipped with a retractable metal isolation gate. Once zombies or raiders appeared on the lower floors, the gate would drop to completely seal off the passage. 3 underground levels were excavated to create an independent forging workshop, where a constant temperature metal forging platform was set up. Massive quantities of metal raw materials, crystal core storage cabinets, and metal storage bins for medical supplies were stockpiled. A separate ability training room was built, with conductive metal plates laid around the perimeter to accelerate crystal core energy absorption and enhance metal manipulation proficiency. In a hidden corner of the underground, a sealed water storage tank was constructed, with metal-sealed canisters storing clean water, paired with a water-purifying metal filtration system to ensure long-term drinking water security. During the renovation, greed took hold of some survivors on the 1st underground level. 2 young men sneaked up to the 2nd level, intending to steal the stacked metal modules. The moment they set foot on the stairs, the lifting metal gate slammed shut, and metal spikes shot out from both sides of the staircase, pressing against their chests, leaving them immobilized. Hearing the commotion, I emerged from the forging workshop, retracted the spikes with a wave of my hand, and said coldly, "The zones have been clearly demarcated. If you insist on crossing the line, next time I'll restrict your movement directly and expel you from the underground shelter." Terrified, the 2 fled back to the 1st level, where they exaggerated and spread my threats, causing a rift within the team. Some, wary of my metal abilities, chose to stay put on the 1st level. Others, unwilling to accept the monopoly of the underground space, secretly contacted roving raider squads outside, plotting a joint assault on the 2nd level forging workshop to seize all the metal armaments. Relying on the metal pipeline spread throughout the underground, I monitored every conversation. In advance, I set up hidden metal traps on the 2nd and 3rd levels, including the stairs and corridors, retractable metal spike plates on the floor, explosive metal darts suspended from the ceiling, and extendable alloy spears along the corridor walls. At the same time, I forged several metal automatic sentry puppets, powered by metal energy. Once any unauthorized personnel crossed the boundary, they would immediately trigger a metal alarm and activate the defensive weapons simultaneously. As night fell, the intensity of the black rain slightly diminished, and the roar of off-road vehicles echoed from the ground. Jiang Chen, Lin Chen, and their group walked in through the entrance of an underground passage, planning to enter the civil air defense shelter to find a safe place to stay. They happened to encounter a group of survivors with malicious intentions on the first floor. The two sides quickly reached an agreement, planning to launch a joint raid on my modified area late at night to seize metal equipment and a large amount of supplies. Standing by the metal window on the third floor, I clearly heard the entire plan through the underground ventilation metal pipes. My fingers traced the newly forged metal explosive halberd, calmly waiting for the counterattack at midnight. Scene of this chapter: the second-floor corridor of the underground civil air defense shelter and the forging workshop. Continuing from the previous chapter's plot of multiple factions conspiring to launch a sneak attack, the conflict escalates into a three-way melee. Jiang Chen's lightning-type squad, the 19 survivors coalition on the first floor, and me, fully equipped with metal military gear. Two core conflicts emerge: the struggle for crystal cores and the ownership of the shelter. The counterattack covers multiple angles, including ability countering, metal trap encirclement, direct weapon suppression, and divisive tactics, ensuring a full reversal with satisfying intensity. At midnight, the black rain briefly stopped, and the zombies on the ground temporarily lay low. Jiang Chen, along with Lin Weiwei, Liao Xiaoyu, and Chen Wank, formed a 5-person squad and joined forces with 12 survivors from the first floor who were plotting to seize supplies. A total of 17 people, armed with wooden sticks, crude stone blades, and a few discarded steel pipes, split into 2 groups and charged up to the second floor via the east and west staircases. They planned to raid the forging workshop while I was asleep, stealing all the metal weapons, modification modules, and stockpiled food and water. Everyone deliberately lightened their footsteps, but the entire underground corridor was filled with metal sensing lines I had pre-laid. The moment their soles touched the metal wires, sharp metal alarms rang out across the entire floor. Dozens of metal emergency lights on the ceiling automatically lit up, casting a pale white glow over the entire corridor. Metal spike plates hidden in the wall cavities suddenly popped out, blocking the retreat paths of both attacking teams. With both front and rear exits sealed off, the 17 people were instantly trapped in the narrow corridor. Jiang Chen immediately unleashed a massive wave of purple lightning, striking the metal gate ahead in an attempt to forcefully break through. However, the reinforced alloy door panels conducted the electricity, causing the lightning to rebound and scatter. 2 survivors in the team failed to dodge in time, were struck by the lightning, and fell to the ground convulsing. The lightning-based ability was largely depleted in a short time, significantly reducing its power. Lin Weiwei, terrified, hid behind Jiang Chen and screamed, "Su Yan, stop hiding. Hand over the metal weapons and the underground space, and we'll leave you a place. Otherwise, we'll all join forces and wear you down." I pushed open the alloy door of the forge workshop, my full-body metal soft armor fitting snugly against my form. In each hand, I held an alloy battle blade, while a metal halberd and dozens of explosive throwing darts floated by my side. I walked slowly to the middle of the corridor, where both the upper and lower layers of the retractable metal gates had fully descended, completely cutting off their escape route to the first floor. The 7 survivors on the first floor, who had been minding their own business, stood outside the gate watching, unwilling to participate in this ambush, forming a neutral third-party force. Liao Xiaoyu activated her earth-based ability, raising an earthen slope to try to gain height and break out. But the liquid metal pre-buried in the ground instantly surged out, wrapping around the soil layer, solidifying and hardening to seal off the earth energy, causing the slope to collapse directly. Chen Wank unleashed wind blades to cut through the metal railings, but the blades only left shallow marks on the alloy surface, completely unable to breach the defense. Wu Qingqing condensed a water column to strike the metal shield in front of me, but the water instantly evaporated upon contact with the high-temperature forged metal, creating a mist that obscured the opponent's vision. All 3 types of abilities were completely countered by metal, throwing the formation of the 17 people into chaos. I controlled the retractable alloy spears on both sides of the corridor, thrusting them alternately, precisely pinning down their wrists and knocking the crude weapons from their hands. Only Jiang Chen remained, holding his lightning energy in front of him, putting up a desperate resistance. Seeing that they were outmatched in combat, Lin Weiwei concocted a malicious plan. She secretly pulled a cloth strip stained with zombie rotting blood from her backpack, intending to throw it at me. Once it touched my skin, it could easily infect me with the virus. I sensed the small metal zipper inside the cloth strip in advance, and a flying dart precisely struck it down. As it hit the ground, I used a metal plate to wrap and seal it, isolating the viral contaminant. Ambush, looting, and deliberate virus release, all three bottom lines have been crossed. I raised my hand, and the metal darts in midair arranged themselves in an orderly formation. I'll split you into 2 groups and let you return to the first floor. Leave behind all the looted supplies and crystals. If you dare to collude with outsiders to invade the 2nd and 3rd floors again, the metal defenses will directly immobilize everyone and expel you from the underground shelter. Jiang Chen refused to accept defeat. He forcibly overdrew his abilities and hurled a massive thunderball at me. I mobilized the 3rd floor's reserves, stacking large alloy plates into a protective shield. The thunderball struck the shield and exploded, the immense shockwave causing Jiang Chen's blood to churn and his abilities to be completely drained, leaving him powerless to continue fighting. The 17 of them had no choice but to hand over all the 1st and 2nd tier crystals in their backpacks, as well as the scavenged compressed food and bottled water, which were all piled up on the corridor floor and packed away by metal modules. I distributed a small amount of basic rations back to the group, opened a single metal gate to let them pass, and Jiang Chen's squad along with the ambush survivors retreated to the 1st floor in disgrace. The 2 sides broke into an argument halfway, with the 1st floor survivors blaming Jiang Chen's lightning abilities for being utterly useless and costing them their crystal supplies. Lin Weiwei, in turn, accused the 1st floor survivors of being weak in combat and slowing down the attack. The internal conflict escalated completely, devolving into shoving, quarrels, and outright brawling. The 7 well-behaved survivors who had been watching from the sidelines voluntarily came upstairs to find me and sincerely proposed a collaboration. They were skilled in cooking, identifying edible wild plants, and tending to the wounded. They were willing to stay long-term on the underground 1st floor to handle logistics, never crossing into the 2nd or 3rd floors, and only asked me to provide a few metal tools for gathering supplies outside. I agreed to the collaboration, forged a batch of lightweight metal kitchen knives and portable digging shovels for them, designated a dedicated logistics zone on the 1st floor, and gifted them some drinking water and first aid medicine. After dealing with the ambush team, I returned to the 3rd floor cultivation room and absorbed all the collected 2nd and 3rd level crystals. My metal manipulation ability broke through to the 3rd level, expanding my control range to 500 meters, doubling the speed of melting and forging metal, and allowing me to simultaneously control hundreds of metal weapons for coordinated combat, taking advantage of the idle late-night hours. I used my newly enhanced abilities to reinforce the outer entrances of the underground shelter. I crafted a metal drop trap beneath the ground-level entrance whenever a large number of zombies or raiders stormed in. The metal cage would automatically close, trapping the targets and making it easier to hunt them from a distance and harvest their crystals. At the same time, I forged several sets of spare metal soft armor and combat blades, storing them in the 3rd floor supply depot as reserves. As dawn broke with a grayish light on the horizon, a new wave of black rain fell, corroding all wooden structures on the surface. The ground had completely lost any safe foothold, and a large number of survivors without shelters rushed toward the underground shelter. New resource conflicts and territorial disputes were imminent. Standing by the 3rd floor metal observation window, I manipulated hundreds of fine metal threads spread throughout all underground passages, monitoring every newcomer's movements in real time, fully prepared to handle the upcoming wave of conflicts. Scene of this chapter: the entire underground shelter area, 1st floor hall, external underground passages, 3rd floor control zone, Dozens of homeless refugees have arrived. Escalating conflicts into looting of supplies, factional opposition, and disputes over survival resource distribution. The countermeasures include establishing metal-controlled zones, setting up metal counters for resource exchange, using force to deter looters, and formulating fair survival rules balancing human constraints with reasonable coexistence. The 4-day black rain had corroded and destroyed most of the ground-level houses. Over 100 displaced survivors poured through underground passages into the entrance of the Civil Air Defense shelter. The narrow passage was instantly packed with men, women, and children. The elderly and the young wailed weakly, while the able-bodied refugees fixed their eyes on the metallic glint of weapons protruding from the second floor. They immediately realized that this place held abundant supplies and solid defenses. In a swarm, they broke through the flimsy barrier on the first floor, rushing into the hall to loot the small amount of food stored by the orderly squad. Jiang Chen, Lin Weiwei, and their group took advantage of the chaos to incite the refugees, loudly spreading rumors. The second and third floors are all Su Yan's exclusive supplies and clean water. She's hoarding a large amount of equipment, completely ignoring everyone else's survival. Let's charge up together, split the metal weapons and food, and everyone can live. Dozens of refugees, stirred up by the rumors, grabbed broken stones and chunks of concrete and rushed up the stairs toward the metal gate on the second floor. The elderly and children followed behind, some genuinely seeking shelter, while others, mostly able-bodied men, simply wanted to loot in the chaos. The situation spiraled completely out of control. The orderly logistics squad on the first floor was powerless to stop them and could only retreat to a corner, watching helplessly as their stored wild vegetables and dry rations were snatched away. The metal sensing wires spread throughout the passage immediately transmitted the disturbance signal. All the alloy sliding gates on the second floor dropped down, and metal spikes extended from the gaps in the stairs, pressing against the leading able-bodied refugees to prevent them from breaking through the defenses. I descended the stairs slowly from the third floor, clad in full-body metal soft armor, with dozens of alloy short knives floating around me, within a radius of 500 meters. All discarded steel bars and metal pipes were under my control, forming a metal isolation belt around the hall, dividing it into 3 independent zones. A temporary settlement area for the ground floor refugees, an exclusive logistics zone on the first floor, and a controlled safe zone for the second and third floors. The metal barriers were permanently separated, and no one could cross without permission. If you want to take shelter, you must follow the survival rules here. Anyone who violates them will be immediately expelled from the shelter and left to face the black rain and evolved zombies on the surface alone. I raised my hand and forged a metal trading counter, placing it in the center of the first floor hall. All supplies are prohibited from being looted. We will implement a barter system. Collected crystals, intact metal materials, medicine, and clean water can all be exchanged for instant food, drinking water, and simple metal tools. The elderly, children, and survivors who are severely injured and unable to fight can register daily to receive basic rations without needing to trade. Jiang Chen, who had incited the chaos, stepped forward to retort, his tone sharp. What gives you the right to set the rules? The underground space is public property. You can't hoard the supplies from the upper floors. You must bring everything out and split it equally. Lin Weiwei wiped away her tears and lamented to the refugees. Su Yan and I have known each other since childhood. She has always been selfish. And in the apocalypse, she only looks out for herself. She's hoarded a massive amount of supplies and refuses to help anyone. We should all demand that she open the second floor. Many refugees, unaware of the truth, were stirred up by the two. They picked up stones and struck the metal fence, attempting to force their way over. With a thought, I caused sharp barbs to emerge on the surface of the fence. Those who got too close had their arms lightly scratched and quickly retreated. Then, I manipulated a pile of confiscated first-level crystals and bagged compressed rations to float above the trading counter, publicly displaying the inventory. All public exchange supplies are placed here. The forging equipment, modification materials, and the independent space on the third floor. which I have obtained through my own abilities and hard work day and night, are not public resources and cannot be divided equally. As his words fell, several refugees who had participated in the late-night sneak attack showed guilt on their faces, voluntarily dropping the stones in their hands and stepping back from the looting crowd. Parents with children lined up at the metal transaction counter to register and collect child-specific rations, no longer following Jiang Chen in causing trouble. A few stubborn young adults still refused to listen and joined forces to ram the metal fence. I manipulated several metal rods to precisely press against their shoulders, restricting their movements, and isolated them one by one in the temporary control room at the entrance, warning that a second violation would result in permanent expulsion. Seeing that his incitement had failed, Jiang Chen attempted to activate his lightning-based ability to destroy the metal transaction counter. However, the moment the lightning touched the metal, it rebounded, causing him to suffer backlash from his ability once again. His entire body went weak and limp, and he could no longer release any lightning. Lin Weiwei, seeing Jiang Chen lose his combat capability, immediately changed her tune, pretending to comply with the rules while secretly hiding a few pieces of snatched dry rations, intending to take them away privately. The metal filaments detected her act of concealing supplies, and the metal storage box automatically flew out, retrieved the hidden food, and displayed it on the transaction counter for public view. The refugees, seeing her true two-faced nature, distanced themselves and no longer heeded her instigations. With the situation stabilized, I assigned a logistics team from the first floor to handle material registration and ration distribution. I forged dozens of simple metal digging shovels and butchering knives, distributing them to survivors tasked with gathering supplies outside. I required the outdoor teams to bring back metal raw materials and crystal cores daily as public resources, in exchange for sufficient daily provisions. At the same time, I modified the metal isolation cage at the underground entrance and arranged for 2 capable refugees to take turns guarding it, preventing evolved zombies on the surface from breaking into the underground passage. Late at night, while auditing the public exchange materials, I discovered that someone had secretly tampered with the registration records and embezzled crystal cores. Tracing the metal filaments, I found it was Liao Xiaoyu. Taking advantage of the logistics staff's rest, he altered the ledger, transferring the submitted crystal cores to Jiang Chen's team. I retrieved the full footage recorded by the metal sensors and projected it publicly onto a metal reflective board. All the refugees clearly saw the entire process of tampering. Liao Xiaoyu lowered his head in shame and voluntary. Ly accepted a 3-day ration deduction as punishment. Jiang Chen's team's credibility completely collapsed, and they could no longer incite the crowd. After the chaos of the refugee looting, the Civil Air Defense Facility established a stable survival order. Most survivors behaved themselves, with only Jiang Chen, Lin Weiwei, Chen Wank, Liao Xiaoyu, and Wu Qingqing harboring constant discontent. They secretly planned to find the hidden ventilation ducts of the underground shelter, bypass the metal gates, and sneak into the 3rd-floor forging workshop to steal top-tier alloy weapons. I had already modified all the ventilation ducts in advance, filling them with metal blocking nets that no living person could pass through, waiting for them to walk right into the trap again. Scene of this chapter: abandoned meat processing plant on the outskirts, den of mutated dogs and first-order mutated wild boars. A transitional outdoor large scene in the middle of the plot. After 3 consecutive days of black rain, the sky completely cleared, and surface vegetation mutated wildly. A large number of second-order mutated beasts gathered in the processing plant. Jiang Chen's team secretly followed me here, hoping to reap the benefits by snatching high-order crystals. New conflicts include mutated beast hunting, backstabbing by the team, and large-scale metal control. The counterattack relies on terrain metal components, forging heavy metal weapons to hunt mutated beasts, while simultaneously countering the ambush from Jiang Chen and his group. At dawn, the black rain completely dissipated, leaving the sky an eerie dark purple. The roadside trees had thick, mutated branches with corrosive thorns. Most of the first-order crystals stored in the underground shelter had been consumed, making it urgent to hunt second-order mutated beasts for high-order crystals to upgrade metal manipulation abilities. Meanwhile, the massive steel slaughtering equipment and metal refrigeration racks inside the processing plant were scarce large-scale metal resources, to be used for expanding the fourth underground storage area of the shelter, carrying a full set of metal armaments and a portable metal storage space. I headed alone along the highway to the meat processing plant on the outskirts. First-order zombies were scattered along the way. I manipulated the abandoned guardrail iron bars on the roadside to quickly harvest them, collecting crystals while recycling metal scrap. With a 500-meter metal perception fully activated, I clearly sensed Jiang Chen, Lin Weiwei, and their 5-member team deliberately lowering their footsteps 300 meters behind me, hiding behind mutated shrubs, planning to wait until I had killed all the mutated beasts in the nest before ambushing me to snatch the second and third order crystals and metal materials. I didn't expose him immediately, pretending not to notice, and walked straight into the entrance of the abandoned processing plant. The factory walls were all built with thick iron sheets. Inside the workshop were metal slaughter tables, large stainless steel cold storage units, iron chain hooks, and steel conveyor belts, with rotting flesh and residue scattered everywhere. Dozens of second-stage mutant dogs were entrenched on the first floor of the workshop, far larger than ordinary wild dogs, their fangs gleaming with a bluish-black venom. Seeing living people flood in, they howled in packs and charged over. I mentally commanded all the metal slaughter equipment in the workshop to lift and reassemble. Dozens of thick metal slaughter chains intertwined and coiled, binding the more than 10 mutant dogs charging at the front. An alloy combat knife zipped through rapidly, splitting open a mutant dog's skull with one strike and extracting a milky white second-stage crystal core. Metal darts killed fleeing lone mutant dogs from a distance. The steel conveyor belt in the workshop moved sideways, blocking the mutant dogs' encirclement routes, splitting the battlefield for a piecemeal hunt. Halfway through the slaughter, a faint noise came from the back door of the factory. Jiang Chen's team could no longer hold back and charged in as a group. Jiang Chen unleashed a wide-range lightning strike aimed at me, who was still fighting the mutant dogs, planning to use the dogs to distract me and seize the chance to ambush and severely wound me. The abandoned steel bars pre-buried in the ground beneath my feet burst out instantly, stacking into a metal shield that blocked the lightning. The lightning conducted through the ground chains, burning several nearby mutant dogs. Jiang Chen's lightning accidentally injured the beast pack, and a large number of mutant dogs turned to charge at his team, putting them under attack from two sides. Lin Weiwei screamed in terror, swinging a rusty iron blade she had picked up to drive away the mutant dogs, but it couldn't even pierce the thick hide of the mutant beasts. Liao Xiaoyu raised an earth wall with her earth-based ability, but it collapsed under the mutant dog's charge. Chen Wang's wind blades were too weak, only causing minor scratches on the beasts' bodies. Wu Qingqing's water jets could only briefly slow down the mutant dogs. In an instant, the 5 of them were surrounded by 7 or 8 second-stage mutant dogs, caught in a perilous situation. I didn't intervene immediately. Instead, I maneuvered the heavy metal slaughter hooks suspended from the workshop ceiling, letting them hover above Jiang Chen's team. I spoke coldly. "You followed and ambushed us, hoping to snatch the crystals. Now you've trapped yourselves among the beasts. You brought this on yourselves." Jiang Chen, while fending off the mutant dogs, lowered his posture and begged, "Su Yan, we were wrong. We won't covet your supplies anymore. Let's join forces to clear out the beast nest. All the high-tier crystals are yours. We'll only take a few first-tier ones. Please, help us out of this." Only when the 5 of them were on the verge of being mauled by the mutant dogs did I activate all the metal slaughter chains, sending them flying out to entangle the beasts surrounding them. With a long alloy halberd, I pierced through the mutant dogs' heads from a distance, swiftly clearing the area around the team. As Lin Weiwei escaped danger, her eyes once again locked onto the metal storage box filled with second-tier crystals in my backpack. Taking advantage of my turning to hunt the remaining mutant boars, she stealthily reached out to snatch the box. The outer layer of the box instantly sprouted metal spikes, piercing the back of her hand. The sharp pain made her pull back, foiling her theft attempt. From deep within the workshop, 3 second-tier mutant boars charged out. Their thick hides tough enough to resist ordinary blades. I melted down the reinforced steel plates from the cold storage, forging 2 heavy alloy axes, wielding one in each hand. I closed in to hack at the boars' necks while simultaneously manipulating the steel conveyor belt on the ground to trap their limbs, effortlessly harvesting 3 second-tier crystals. All the mutant beasts in the entire processing plant have been cleared, totaling 26 second-tier mutant dogs and 5 second-tier mutant boars, yielding 31 second-tier crystal cores. All the metal slaughtering equipment, cold storage steel plates, and iron chains in the workshop have been dismantled and melted, forming a giant mass of metal raw materials suspended in the air. Jiang Chen's team stood in the corner, not daring to approach. I allocated 5 first-tier crystal cores and tossed them to them as compensation for their help in clearing the remaining mutant beasts earlier. I explicitly told them not to follow or tail us anymore, or else I would let the wild mutant beasts surround them. The few of them dared not linger further. They took the crystal cores and hurriedly left the processing plant. On the way back, they deliberately took a detour, secretly collecting scattered metal scraps along the roadside, hoping to forge weapons on their own. However, lacking the ability to manipulate metal, they could only rely on stones to hammer them into shape. The finished products were crude and utterly useless against high-tier mutant beasts, loaded with crystal cores and a massive amount of metal raw materials. I returned to the underground air raid shelter. The refugees on the first floor marveled at the piles of second-tier crystal cores. Many scavenging teams that had gone out voluntarily signed up, hoping to follow me on hunts for mutant beasts in exchange for more supplies and crystal cores. I selected 3 survivors with pure hearts and no history of looting to form a temporary field team, forged lightweight metal weapons for them, and agreed to head to the building materials market in the west of the city the next day to collect large quantities of construction steel, expanding the underground 4th-level large-scale storage and forging area of the shelter. At night, I absorbed the second-tier crystal cores harvested today, steadily improving my metal manipulation ability. I could now remotely control large metal components weighing up to 10 tons, greatly enhancing the efficiency of renovating the shelter. Ventilation ducts, metal isolation gates, and storage racks could all be assembled in one go. The only thing left to build the ultimate fully enclosed metal shelter, isolated from all external dangers, was a large quantity of construction steel raw materials. Chapter Scene: the large-scale building materials wholesale market on the west side of the city, where steel, alloy pipes, and metal sheets fill every shop. The core objective is to collect massive amounts of construction metal to expand the ultimate shelter on the 4th underground floor of the Civil Air Defense System. A new third-party faction, a large survivor merchant guild, emerges, and Jiang Chen's team secretly colludes with them to jointly set up 2 conflict lines for a siege. The counterattack employs large-scale metal encirclement, dividing the 2 enemy factions, batch forging defensive fortifications, and balancing crystal core resources, creating multiple satisfying twists and reversals. At dawn, leading 3 field survivors, they drive to the building materials market on the west side. The off-road vehicle is pre-fitted with thickened metal protective plates. Along the way, first and second-tier zombies are all cleared by the field team using the metal blades I forged. I focus on sensing the metal distribution within a 500-meter radius. The hundreds of tons of rebar, stainless steel sheets, and galvanized pipes in the market are clearly mapped in my mind enough to fully transform the 4th underground floor of the Civil Air Defense System into an all-metal sealed safe room, divided into 4 independent zones: forging, storage, cultivation, and planting. The main gate of the building materials market is sealed by a heavy alloy rolling door. Inside, a survivor merchant guild of about 30 people is stationed, led by a 4th-tier earth element ability user, with several wind and water element ability users under his command. They rely on hoarded building materials to set up simple ground defenses, monopolizing all metal resources in the area and charging high crystal core prices for steel. As our vehicle drives in, Over a dozen guild members wielding steel pipes immediately blocked the car, forbidding us from entering the market to collect metal. The guild leader slowly walks out, a thick earth wall blocking the front of the vehicle. This entire building materials market is under our guild's control. If you want steel, 1 second-tier crystal core for 10 rebars. No unauthorized dismantling of metal sheets in the shops. Violators will be directly expelled and left to the evolved zombies outside the gate. The field team members looked troubled. The second-tier crystals we had gathered today were insufficient to exchange for a large batch of steel. I pushed open the car door and stepped out. With a flick of my mind, all the steel inside the market began to tremble slightly. The embedded steel bars in the walls burst out of the ground, forming a metal isolation ring around the merchant guild members. Metal has no owner. In this post-apocalyptic world, resources for survival should not be monopolized. I can trade forged sets of metal weapons for steel far more cost-effective than crystals. The leader sneered dismissively, urging an earth wall to compress the metal isolation ring, believing that earth-based abilities could counter ordinary metal. But molten energy surged from my palm, instantly solidifying upon contact with the steel bars at the base of the earth wall. The ground cracked and collapsed, rendering the earth ability useless. The entire merchant guild was stunned, no longer daring to underestimate my metal manipulation skills. Just as the negotiations reached a stalemate, Jiang Chen, Lin Weiwei, and their 5 companions emerged from the market side entrance. They walked straight to the merchant guild leader, handed him a bag of first-tier crystals, and whispered in secret discussion. The 2 parties struck a deal. The merchant guild would trap me and the field team, while Jiang Chen's team would seize the second-tier crystals and full sets of military equipment from my backpack. In return, they would split the market's steel stockpile equally, with 30 merchant guild members and the 5-person team. A total of 35 people formed an encirclement, sealing off all market entrances and exits. A pincer attack was set in motion. The 3 field team members gripped their metal short knives tightly, their expressions tense. I raised my hand, dismantling all the metal shelves in the market's shops and reassembling them into hundreds of sharp steel spears suspended in midair. The rolling doors at the main entrance and side exits were all melted and sealed shut, cutting off every escape route, trapping all 35 people in the open central courtyard of the market. Jiang Chen was the first to unleash a wide-range thunder strike against the steel spear formation. The lightning conducted through the steel, scattering in all directions, striking several members of the merchant guild and throwing their formation into chaos. The leader summoned multiple layers of earthen walls for defense, but I manipulated the underground rebar to pierce through the soil layers, dismantling all the earth-based barriers. Liao Xiaoyu, Chen Wank, and Wu Qingqing unleashed their abilities in turn, but each was perfectly countered by various metal constructs, utterly unable to break through my defense. Lin Weiwei, hiding behind the crowd, secretly set fire to the wooden planks stacked by the shops, hoping to create a blaze that would disrupt my metal manipulation. However, the high-temperature flames could not affect the steel. I redirected several stainless steel water pipes, drawing clean water stored in the underground metal pipes of the market, and sprayed it from above to extinguish the fire, preventing it from spreading. The 2 opposing sides were locked in mutual restraint. The merchant guild blamed Jiang Chen's lightning for accidentally injuring their own people, while Jiang Chen accused the guild's earth-based defenses of being utterly fragile. Internal conflict erupted between them, escalating into arguments and shoving. Seizing the opportunity, I dismantled the massive quantities of steel from the shops, gathering them into a colossal floating mass of raw metal. At the same time, I forged dozens of standard alloy weapons and tossed them to the neutral lower-ranking members of the guild, dividing their camp. Those willing to stop the siege and trade fairly, take a weapon and leave. Those who continue to collude in plundering will be trapped in the courtyard forever. Half of the lower-ranking guild members, unwilling to risk their lives for the leader, took the metal weapons and withdrew from the encirclement. Only the leader, 7 core elite members, and Jiang Chen's group of 513 in total remained to resist. I manipulated the steel spears to precisely pin down the limbs of all 13, restricting their movements, and laid out the terms of trade. Leave behind 70% of the steel for me to take and expand the shelter, leaving the remaining 30% for the guild. As a gesture, I would also offer 10 second-tier crystals and 5 sets of heavy alloy combat blades. With this, both sides would reconcile and cease further hostilities. After weighing the pros and cons, the leader nodded in agreement and lifted the hostile stance. Jiang Chen's team was filled with reluctance, but without the Merchant Guild's support, they had no way to stop me from taking away the massive amount of steel. They could only watch helplessly as hundreds of tons of metal raw materials were stored into my space. The 3 field operatives helped sort through the small metal components: alloy screws, waterproof metal sheets, and ventilation steel pipes were all packed and secured. Before heading back, I taught the Merchant Guild leader basic metal forging techniques to set up ground defenses, completely resolving the conflict between the two sides. Returning to the underground bunker fully loaded with steel, I immediately initiated the expansion project for the 4th underground floor. Massive amounts of rebar were used to assemble metal walls, stainless steel sheets sealed for waterproofing and corrosion resistance, and the area was divided into specialized zones. An oversized constant temperature forging workshop, multi-layer crystal core metal storage cabinets, a metal sealed ability training room, and an indoor planting area with metal irrigation pipes. Using the stable water source from the space, I cultivated edible vegetables, completely eliminating the need to venture out for food. By late night, the expansion was complete, and the all-metal 4th underground floor shelter began to take shape. Each level was equipped with multiple layered alloy lift gates, automatic metal sentry puppets, and hidden underground escape metal passages. Even if high-tier mutated beasts of the 3rd or 4th rank appeared on the surface, they would be unable to breach the multi-layered metal defenses. The 3 field operatives voluntarily applied for long-term duty on the 4th floor, responsible for maintaining the metal facilities and tending to the indoor vegetable garden. I gifted each of them a second-tier crystal core to enhance their abilities, further boosting the team's combat power. In the future, we could head to the city center's large shopping mall together to collect scarce daily necessities. Scene for this chapter: a 5-story comprehensive shopping mall in the city center, the most resource-rich core outdoor location in the post-apocalyptic world. The conflict involves 3 pressures: the remaining looters guarding the mall, Jiang Chen's team arriving on the news, and a wandering 3rd-tier mutated black bear in the distance. The counterattack utilizes the mall's built-in metal escalators, shelves, and elevator steel cables for large-scale area control, mass forges high-tier weapons, harvests 3rd-tier crystal cores, and completely cuts off any possibility of Jiang Chen's team seizing supplies. This completes the closed loop of resource, metal, and crystal core reserves in the early post-apocalyptic stage. The basic renovation of the underground 4th floor metal shelter is fully completed. Vegetables in the indoor planting area are growing steadily. Only a small number of second-tier crystal cores remain in reserve. There is a show. Routage of medicine, clothing, maternal and infant supplies, and various daily consumables. The target is set on the 5-story comprehensive shopping mall in the city center. The entire building is equipped with steel staircases, elevator cables, metal shelves, and firefighting steel pipes. A massive amount of metal components can be forged on-site into high-tier military equipment. The mall's underground warehouse stores a large quantity of non-perishable instant food, medicine, and warm clothing, making it a rare source of scarce comprehensive supplies in the apocalypse. At dawn, I led 3 field operatives in a reinforced off-road vehicle toward the city center. The roads were littered with abandoned vehicles. I manipulated the metal bumper of the vehicle to push aside wrecked cars blocking the way. Along the route, second-tier zombies were easily harvested using roadside iron sheets. Approaching within 500 meters of the mall, my metal perception detected 3 types of targets. A 12-person looting gang occupying the 5th floor of the mall, using elevator cables to build a simple defense and monopolizing the warehouse supplies. Jiang Chen's 5-person off-road vehicle trailing behind, hiding among the ruins of buildings, waiting for an opportunity to ambush. and a third-tier mutated black bear roaming in the park behind them all. With extremely strong black fur defense and earth-type mutation abilities, its crystal core value far exceeding that of second-tier ones. First, I arranged for the 3 field operatives to guard the east alley of the mall. Intercepting stray zombies, I entered alone through the main entrance. The heavy glass door had a metal rolling shutter locked from the inside by the looting gang. With a thought, the lock's metal melted and dissolved, and the rolling shutter automatically rolled upward. The 12 looters rushed forward, wielding steel pipes and broken glass knives. The leader was a second-tier Earth-type ability user, raising a wall of crushed stone and earth to block my path. All the metal shelves in the mall were instantly dismantled and reassembled. Dozens of steel bars intertwined to trap the earth wall. Elevator cables descended from above, binding the limbs of the 12 people, rendering them immobile. I spoke calmly. I won't take all the warehouse supplies. I'll leave 30% for you to survive. I'll take the remaining supplies and all the metal in the mall. From now on, you are not allowed to rob lone survivors passing through. The leading man, unwilling to give up, tried to drive gravel to attack, but the steel cables tightened and pressed against his body, forcing him to compromise and retreat. I left a small amount of instant food and medicine for them and began clearing the mall floor by floor. On the first floor, supermarket goods like grain, oil, purified water, and emergency medicine. On the second and third floors, clothing such as warm jackets, combat pants, and durable shoes. On the fourth floor, maternal and infant supplies, toiletries, and hardware tools. On the fifth floor, electronics, lighters, candles, and other scarce daily necessities, all stored into the metal space storage compartment. As I gathered supplies on the fourth floor, a thunderous crack echoed from the mall's main entrance. Jiang Chen's team finally burst in. Jiang Chen unleashed dense lightning bolts at the elevator cables, trying to disrupt my metal manipulation. Lin Weiwei led the other 4 to seize the leftover supplies on the first floor. Intending to take the provisions while I was fending off the raiding group, I manipulated the metal panels of the escalators to move, separating the 2 teams. While restraining Jiang Chen's lightning attacks, I redirected steel bars from shelves to block Lin Weiwei and her group, preventing them from touching the warehouse supplies. As the 2 sides clashed, the rear wall of the mall shattered with a loud crash. A third-stage mutated black bear burst through the wall into the first floor. Its massive bear paws smashed the concrete floor, and its earth-based abilities raised gravel to hurl at everyone. The raiding group, Jiang Chen's team, and the field operatives were all instantly caught in the black bear's attack range. The 3 sides were forced to temporarily band together to dodge the debris. I immediately melted the 5th floor firefighting pipes, forging 2 giant alloy beast-slaying blades. Hundreds of steel spears hovered around me, forming a defensive net. I faced the 3rd-stage black bear head-on, using my mental power combined with metal manipulation to bind its limbs. The alloy long blades slashed at its head, breaking through its thick hide after several heavy strikes. Seizing the moment of its dizziness, I dug out a fist-sized black 3rd-stage crystal core. Energy surged into my body, and my metal manipulation ability directly broke through to the 4th level, extending my control range to 800 meters and allowing me to melt large building steel frames. After the black bear fell, Jiang Chen immediately rushed forward to seize the 3rd-tier crystal core. A steel spear instantly pressed against his chest midair, stopping him in his tracks. I hunted this 3rd-tier mutated beast alone, so the crystal core rightfully belongs to me. If you try to take it by force, I'll confiscate all your equipment on the spot. Jiang Chen, unable to unleash his lightning powers, had no choice but to halt, seeing that the high-tier crystal core was out of reach. Lin Weiwei secretly hid 2 boxes of antibiotics. However, the metal filaments precisely searched them out, and the medicine was restored in my supply depot, leaving them no room to exploit. The 12 members of the looting gang, having witnessed me single-handedly kill the 3rd-tier mutated beast, completely abandoned any thoughts of competing for supplies and obediently stayed on the 5th floor, no longer harboring malicious intentions. after clearing out all the supplies and metal components from the entire mall. A massive lump of raw metal material hovered above the off-road vehicle's roof. The field team sorted and packed the medicine and warm clothing, enough to sustain all survivors in the underground shelter for a year. Before heading back, I left behind a batch of forged medium-sized metal weapons for the looting gang, enabling them to fend off future high-tier mutated beasts and resolving all hostile conflicts. Driving back to the underground shelter, all the survivors cheered at the sight of the vehicle loaded with supplies. The first-floor logistics team immediately began categorizing and distributing basic daily necessities. I took the third-tier crystal core to the fourth-floor cultivation room to absorb it, unlocking a new ability with my fourth-tier metal powers: remote modification of distant metal structures, smelting and forging heavy metal fortresses, creating mobile metal combat mechs, and fully meeting the conditions to transform an ultimate all-metal mobile shelter. The only remaining threat was Jiang Chen and his group. After several failed ambushes and attempts to seize supplies, their resentment deepened, and they were likely to take desperate, extreme measures. I preemptively reinforced all entrances and exits of the underground shelter with 4 layers of alloy gates and deployed numerous automatic metal sentinel puppets, waiting for their final attack. Chapter Scene: the fully metal 4-story underground shelter of the Civil Air Defense project the final decisive battle in the main underground passage. The closing chapter of the entire book. The final conflict sees Jiang Chen's team colluding with the remaining core members of the former West City Chamber of Commerce and rebels from the mall looting gang. A total of 23 people launch a nighttime assault on the 4-story shelter, attempting to seize all metal equipment, high-level crystals, and massive survival supplies. The counterattack employs 4th-level full-spectrum metal abilities, giant metal mechas, multi-layered chain traps, and various strategies of division and alienation, eliminating all hostile forces in one fell swoop and thoroughly clearing the survival threats of the apocalypse. The ending perfects the permanent metal shelter, establishing a stable foothold while awaiting the reconstruction of post-apocalyptic order. After absorbing a 3rd-level crystal and breaking through to 4th-level metal abilities, I crafted a wearable lightweight metal combat mecha in the 4th-story forging workshop. It is covered in full-body alloy armor, equipped with retractable alloy giant blades on both hands, and carries dozens of explosive metal shurikens on its back. The mecha operates autonomously using metal energy, requiring no sustained mental effort, and is specifically designed to handle large-scale assaults by high-level enemies. After 3 consecutive days of stable rest, all survivors in the underground Civil Air Defense shelter are performing their duties. The field team goes out to hunt 2nd-level mutated beasts to steadily obtain crystals, while the logistics team tends to indoor vegetable cultivation and food processing, maintaining orderly stability. In the dead of night, metal alarms erupt across the entire main underground passage. An 800-meter metal perception clearly detects a joint team of 23 people, Jiang Chen and Lin Weiwei's 5-person squad, 4 core members of the West City Chamber of Commerce unwilling to reconcile, and 14 rebels from the mall looting gang. These 3 factions have secretly colluded, carrying rubble, low-quality steel knives, and simple lightning storage devices. They pry open the outer defenses of the underground entrance, rush along the main passage toward the 4-story metal shelter, having previously mapped out the routines of the peaceful survivors on the 1st floor, bypassing the guards, and destroying metal sensing wires along the way. Their plan is to plunder all the reserves on the 4th floor while everyone is asleep. As the team advances, internal cracks begin to show. The Chamber of Commerce core members aim to monopolize the large quantities of construction steel. The looting gang targets medicine and food, and Jiang Chen's team covets only the 3rd-level crystals and the metal mecha. The 3 factions have different goals, united only by their shared greed. Standing before the 4th-story alloy observation window, I activate the multi-layered chain metal traps in the underground passage one by one. Ground spike plates spring up, sealing explosive shurikens launch simultaneously, and retractable alloy spears on both sides alternate in piercing attacks. The front 10 or so members of the team are instantly immobilized by the metal devices, collapsing in agony. Jiang Chen activated an overload of lightning to shatter a small portion of the shallow metal barrier. His abilities pushed to the limit as his body convulsed. Lin Weiwei, terrified, hid at the very back of the group but still didn't miss the chance to stir up the others. The supplies on the 4th floor and the mechs are all ours. Let's break through the gate together and split everything evenly. The remaining 13, ignoring the risk of traps, joined forces to ram the 4th floor elevator's main alloy gate. The 20-centimeter thick alloy door remained unmoved, its internal locking mechanism secured by multiple metal clasps, completely impervious to external force. I donned the metal combat mech, pushed open the 4th floor workshop's alloy door, and slowly descended the stairs. The mech's giant blade struck the ground with a heavy roar, while thousands of fine steel spears hovered and swirled around me. Within an 800-meter radius, all underground rebar and metal pipes were mobilized, forming a massive metal cage that completely trapped the 23 people in the middle section of the main corridor, cutting off all escape routes ahead and behind. 3 team members on duty and a survivor stationed on the 1st floor rushed over upon hearing the commotion, standing outside the cage. They watched Jiang Chen and his group's repeated sneak attacks and collusion with external forces to storm the shelter. Yet no one stepped forward to help. The trapped team was completely panicked. The core members of the Merchant Guild were the first to defect, voluntarily handing over the crystals they had looted and pledging allegiance to the underground shelter, agreeing to abide by the rules. Half of the shopping mall looting group gave up resistance, dropping their weapons and begging for leniency. Only Jiang Chen, Lin Weiwei, Liao Xiaoyu, Chen Wank, and Wu Qingqing remained defiant, taking turns unleashing their abilities to bombard the metal cage. All attacks were reflected and rebounded by the metal, draining their abilities completely. I controlled the mech's giant blade to press against the ground in front of the 5, coldly listing all their transgressions: the initial looting of supplies in the neighborhood, the nighttime sneak attack on the shelter, the betrayal at the suburban mutated beast nest, the collusion with the Merchant Guild to block us at the Western City building materials market, the seizure of medicine at the downtown shopping mall, and tonight's joint assault on the shelter with multiple forces. 6 deliberate acts of plunder and provocation, repeatedly forgiven yet unrepentant. I could no longer tolerate them. As for the rest who are willing to surrender and hand over the looted goods, the metal cage restrictions will be lifted. You will be assigned to the 1st floor safe zone to live peacefully, participating in daily supply gathering and underground maintenance in exchange for survival provisions. As for Jiang Chen and his 5, who have repeatedly caused chaos, they are to be expelled from the underground shelter. They must find their own place to settle on the surface and are never allowed to return to this shelter. The 18 members of the Merchant Guild and looting group immediately dropped their weapons and handed over all the crystals and supplies they had stolen. The single-side gate of the metal cage opened, and the 18 filed out orderly to register for settlement on the 1st floor. Jiang Chen and his 5 were left isolated. Lin Weiwei tearfully rushed forward to tug at the mech's metal armor, trying to plead for mercy based on past ties. The mech's surface metal spikes slightly extended to push her hand away. I no longer had any softness left. In the past life, you tricked me out of all my supplies and left me to die in the jaws of zombies. In this life, you've pushed me step by step. There is no bond left between us. Leave now. The 5 of them were extremely unwilling, but powerless against the level 4 metal mecha and the sky full of steel spears. They could only pack a small amount of basic instant food and exit through the underground entrance. As soon as they stepped onto the ground, they were surrounded by the roars of nocturnal evolved 3rd-tier mutant beasts, forcing them to flee in panic, unable to approach the underground civil defense area ever again. Clear all traces of battle from the main passage. Repair the damaged metal induction wires and lifting gates. Reinforce the outer multilayered metal isolation walls of the 4-story shelter. Forge dozens of permanent metal sentinel puppets to guard all entrances and exits, eliminating the risk of future external attacks. The next morning, gather all survivors of the underground civil defense. Announce the complete survival rules. Assign 3 fixed positions: field operations, logistics, and defense duty. Use level 4 metal abilities to expand the underground 4-story oversized metal greenhouse. Increase vegetable planting area. And permanently solve the food shortage problem. Batch forge standardized metal military equipment and store it in a public warehouse, which field teams can requisition as needed. Hunt mutant beasts and hand over the crystals for unified distribution. The entire underground civil defense area forms a self-sufficient complete metal refuge base, with ample reserves of water, food, medicine, weapons, and crystals. The multilayered metal defenses block all threats from zombies, mutant beasts, and raiders. I stay alone in the 4th-story forging and training area, continuously using the steady supply of crystals to enhance my metal manipulation level. In my spare time, I modify movable metal mini-shelters for field teams to use as temporary refuge during supply collection. Relying on my unique metal forging and construction modification golden finger, I navigate the apocalypse steadily, no longer dependent on any team or individual. Fully taking control of my own survival initiative, quietly waiting for rescue signals from the distant official base, and awaiting the day when the chaotic order of the apocalypse gradually begins to rebuild.